Oftentimes, when we are struggling with insomnia, we remove ourselves from a shared bedroom. We do this in the efforts of protecting our sleep or perhaps even facing recovery head on. Maybe that feels a little bit more manageable. However, if you feel like you have made noticeable steps towards your recovery and you're slowly feeling ready to return back to a shared room, or perhaps you're even asking yourself, will this ever be possible? Then this video is definitely for you. And if you are new here, welcome. My name is Fiona. I'm a recovered chronic insomniac and I help other people overcome insomnia holistically. Insomnia was by far the hardest yet most rewarding experience that I have ever had to go through. And it fills me with so much joy that I can now share my own experience and also own knowledge with other people, just knowing how difficult it is even to find the right resources around this topic. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. So, how do we return back to a shared bedroom after struggling with insomnia? Before we jump into the core elements of today's topic, I do want to share that I'm going to be breaking down this video into three main components. We're going to be starting off with education, or why we feel resistance to the idea of going back to sharing a room with someone. I truly believe that education is power. The more you know and understand insomnia and how it is actually perpetrated also in our thoughts and our emotions, the more you can also work your way back and actually reverse engineer that so that we can heal our relationship with wakefulness. Number two, I'm also going to be sharing what you can actually do. How do you actually approach the situation? How do you approach the resistance that you may be feeling? And number three, I do want to touch on when is the right time for you to do this. I get this asked all of the time, not just how can I return back to sleeping with a partner, but when should I know, or when will I know if it's the right time? So I do want to break that down and quickly give my thoughts on that one as well. Okay, on the educational side, why do we feel resistance, or why do we feel hesitance around the idea of going back to sharing a bedroom with someone? I do want to start by saying that this is completely normal. When I was personally struggling with insomnia, I also had my own bedroom at the time. I removed myself from a shared room with my now ex-partner, and I genuinely thought that I would never go back to sleeping with anyone. And if there's any consolation, my current partner and I now sleep like a log next to him. I have never slept better in my whole entire life. His alarm goes off and I can't even hear it. So if there's any consolation, just take it from me. I'm also what I would consider a very light sleeper. So if I can do it, you can definitely do it too. So if you are feeling hesitance and perhaps even like anxiety around this idea, I do want to share that this is completely normal because our survival instinct of our brain craves control. You may have removed yourself from a shared bedroom for so many different reasons. This could be the idea that you wanted to control your sleep, or you wanted to face insomnia recovery head on. Whatever it may be, it definitely came out of an act of control, right? So when we are fearful of wakefulness, and specifically at the beginning of our insomnia journey, where everything feels very overwhelming, very dark, like there's just absolutely no way out of it, our brain is trying to almost fix and control every single possible outcome and trying to avoid wakefulness as much as possible. So the idea around being in a controlled space where perhaps there's no room, no noise, no sleep disturbances, nobody snoring, etc., feels very comforting. Because our brain actually craves control, anything that is going to potentially disrupt this is going to feel uncomfortable. So because we crave control, we're always trying to avoid any future potential outcome or any future potential unwanted emotion. And because we have associated insomnia with just so much pain and so much grief, we associate that if we go back to sharing a room and potentially have our sleep disturbed, then also means that insomnia is going to come back, right? So I just want to say that this is why you are feeling a specific way. It is not because you can predict the future. It does not mean that insomnia is going to come back. You feel a specific way because when anxiety pops up, it is basically you are experiencing a future fear or a future outcome in the present moment. The second reason why you may feel a bit of hesitance or resistance to this is because we forget that sleep is effortless. If you have been sleeping well, separate to a shared space, then perhaps you are attributing the fact that you are sleeping well to all of these controllable variables to be in your hands, right? Control is definitely an illusion, and we sometimes forget that sleep is a completely passive process that we do not need to get involved in. If anything, I would encourage you to remember that sleep, again, is completely passive, and your body will give you sleep when you allow it. And that does not matter as to whether or not there is noise or not in the room. Yes, of course, sleep disturbances are always normal, but what's really important is how we react to these sleep disturbances. The third reason why you feel hesitance, and this is such an important point, is that we believe that insomnia recovery needs to be linear, and this could not be further away from the truth. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you when you're going to overcome insomnia, nor can I tell you if you're going to experience speed bumps or not, because everybody's journey is different. If anything, I would encourage you to rethink the way that you view insomnia recovery. I personally like to see this as a little bit of a game and a challenge. We almost like go through multiple different levels. The fact that you are perhaps now sleeping well in a quote unquote controlled environment is now proof to you and an example that sleep is something your body knows how to do, right? You have perhaps almost at the beginning thought that sleep was something you had lost. So now you have gained trust that sleep is something that can happen naturally. And this next level of resistance is simply showing you where you still have a little bit of growth to do. Now that you know that these feelings are completely normal and why they are actually happening, let's jump into what you can actually do if you do want to return back to a shared bedroom. So number one, and you may not like what I have to say, is to actually make a plan and stick to it. Oftentimes when we say to ourselves, I'm going to see how this goes, then this oftentimes backfires with insomnia recovery, because this leads to something called monitoring, or this like hypervigilance as to whether or not something is or is not working. So for example, I am sleeping, or I have been sleeping for the past 6 weeks on the couch, and I now want to return back to sleeping with my partner. And I'm going to just see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, I'll just go back to the couch, right? Because I have proof that I can actually sleep on the couch. Whenever you change sleep environments, you will always have potential sleep disturbances. That is completely normal and just cannot be avoided. However, if you go back as an experimentation to sharing a bedroom, then you're going to increase this monitoring. You have told yourself that you are seeing how it goes as an experiment instead of just actually a plan. So your brain's going to be hypervigilant. Your brain's going to be checking in as to whether or not it works, because wakefulness has been proven to be a threat. And what does this hypervigilance do? It basically keeps us awake. Whatever we're trying to fear, whatever we're trying to avoid when it comes to insomnia is actually what is manifested. Number two is to remember that sleep disturbances are completely normal. The most important thing when it comes to insomnia is not whether or not we have slept well, whether or not our environment was perfect, or whether or not we did or did not experience sleep disturbances. It is actually how we respond to these that matter. So if you're going back to sleeping with a shared room, in a shared room with a partner, and your partner perhaps snores, if that disturbs you and wakes you up, maybe notice how you react to it. It is not that person's fault that they have woken you up. They're not doing it on purpose. And if you feel triggered in a specific way, fearful or anxious, this is, again, an opportunity for you to befriend that feeling. We're not trying to push it away. We're not trying to change it. Of course, it is quite annoying when there are sleep disturbances that are outside of our control, but this is all about remembering that sleep disturbances are normal. We can never control everything in our sleep environment, but what we can control is how we react to these situations. Number three is to remember that sleep is always completely effortless. Oftentimes when we are met with a potential challenge or a potential fear in a way, we try and avoid this, right? So our natural instinct is to maybe have thoughts around, maybe I should take melatonin, or maybe I should use earplugs, or maybe I need a face mask, whatever it may be. Know that all of these things are completely fine as long as they're not being used to achieve a specific outcome. We need to really remember that sleep cannot be controlled. You cannot take melatonin with the desire of making sleep happen. Sleep always happens completely by itself, right? So if these thoughts and emotions around controllability of sleep pop up, again, remember that they are completely normal. And two, remember that sleep is always effortless. And number four, how do you actually deal with these feelings and these emotions? So it is completely normal if these thoughts and emotions come up, right? Thoughts are simply words strung in our head, and emotions are how we react to those words and those ideas that pop up. Oftentimes, we don't have control over this. Definitely, emotional regulation is something that takes practice, and it is not something that we just achieve from one day to the other. It is something that is, again, a repetitive practice over the course of time. However, if you do feel resistance, if you do feel fearful of the fact that you want to share a bedroom with someone again, I would actually encourage you to experience that fear. Oftentimes we just push the thought away, or we push the feeling away. For example, I may have the feeling of, I will never be able to share a bedroom with my partner again, and that's going to deeply affect my relationship. And then I start to feel panicky, maybe even sweaty hands, whatever it may be. I have an emotional reaction to that thought. So instead of just allowing the thought to be there, I start to have a dialogue with my brain. I start to say, no, that is not true. No, that's not going to affect my relationship. Or perhaps I say to myself, like, I don't know, I need to go back to like sleeping with my partner. I need to figure this out now. You know what I mean? You're either obeying the thought and the emotion, or you're struggling with it. And neither of these scenarios are actually helpful. So if fear and thoughts and emotions pop up, I will encourage you to truly allow yourself to sit and be with that feeling without actually having to change it. This is what we call cognitive diffusion. You are just allowing the thought to be there. Anxiety is our protective instinct, and actually the more we try and avoid anxiety, the louder it gets. So if this thought pops up, perhaps instead of having a dialogue with it, you can simply say to your brain, thank you so much for warning me, but I don't need to worry about this right now. Number five, especially once you have created that plan and you're going to stick to it, and remembering that sleep disturbances are normal, is to continue to practice befriending wakefulness. So if you do find yourself awake and your partner or whoever you share the room with is asleep and you feel frustrated by it, this is simply an opportunity for you to continue to befriend wakefulness, right? How can you make yourself comfortable in this moment? Remembering that wakefulness is not something we need to push away. It is not something or befriending wakefulness isn't something we need to actively do. It is something we need to actively experience. How do you make yourself comfortable in the present moment without having to chase a specific outcome? Lastly, which is also so important and goes paired with all of the previous things that we just shared, is to practice consistency paired with a lot of self-kindness and compassion. Insomnia recovery is not a perfect linear path, and insomnia recovery is also not asking you to be perfect. You can almost forget about perfection altogether because there is no such thing. Instead, perhaps you can focus on consistency, right? How do you continuously show up for yourself? How can you be consistently showing up based on your values? Can you consistently be befriending wakefulness, experiencing the fear? And again, over time, and the more you just allow this journey to be whatever it intends to be, the easier this is going to get. Okay. That was quite a lot, but hopefully you now know why this resistance is presenting itself, paired with what you can actually do about it and how you can actually face this challenge head on. Trust me, I really believe in you. And you're probably now asking yourself, when is the right time for you to do this? And I get this asked all of the time. They always ask me, Fiona, when will I know when is the right time? Or when is the right time? Can you tell me when that is, or how I should feel? And this is something completely personal. I would definitely encourage you to check in with yourself. If it feels like somewhat like a good time for you to do it, then go ahead. Again, there is no such thing as perfection. If you try it and try and stick to the plan and it still doesn't work, know that you can always revisit it in a future moment. Again, there is no pressure here, right? The main thing is that we're actually moving away from pressure and control and perfectionism altogether. So if you are simply exploring this topic, great. If you are ready to face this head on, also great. But again, there is no such thing as being perfect here. So just be kind to yourself and allow yourself to truly feel when is the right time for you. I really hope that you liked this video. I absolutely love answering your questions. So if you still have a pressing question related to insomnia, life with insomnia, life after insomnia, whatever it may be, please just drop your comments and questions below and I promise to get back to you. And if you're ready to kickstart your insomnia recovery journey, I also have a 5 days to better sleep email series linked below. This is actually packed with all of the educational components that you need to know to really take insomnia recovery into your own hands. Anyway, if I don't see you later, see you in a later video.